Today's episode of Father Knows Food is brought to you in part by Signature City Properties. With over 35 years of experience, Signature City Properties, LLC has helped buyers, sellers, and investors achieve their real estate goals. More information is available by calling 720-480-8686. And by JSR Incorporated, a full-service television production company bringing modern life into full focus. 303-596-2207. And by viewers like you, thank you. Today's recipes and much more can be found at www.fatherknowsfood.com. Father Knows Food today up in the mountains of Colorado. Beautiful day for some skiing and some tubing.
Let's go tubing!
Got a little winter picnic planned.
Ooh, yummy soup.
Tomato basil.
And this sandwich is delicious.
Let's go for it. Super sticky bars. Sugar cookie topped with ooey gooey caramel, toasted coconut, and chocolate chips. Totally, completely irresistible. Creamy tomato basil bisque. Comforting and luxurious with a punch of fresh herbs. Homemade potato chips. Easy to make and highly addictive. Thinly sliced potatoes fried to golden brown perfection. Roast beast sandwiches with homemade pickles. A manly sandwich with a few fancy touches. Spicy horsey mayo, arugula, and sweet and tart homemade pickle slices. We all went up and skied and there was fresh powder.
I saw you.
Did I look awesome?
Yeah.
My full name is Peter Reynolds, and my job title is Dad. I've had a lot of jobs. I'd have to say my favorite job of all of them is Dad. The pay is terrible, but it sure is rewarding. Is it yummy?
I did it.
You did it! Cooking for me is really cathartic. Listen to that sizzle. And I really, truly enjoy it. I enjoy eating food, obviously. Look at me. Well, my family likes to eat.
Delicious.
And it is total dysfunction junction every time we always get together as a family. But it's great. It's wonderful. I wouldn't trade it.
I love food. I love food.
Getting ready to make our super sticky bars today for our winter picnic. To keep it easy, I bought some sugar cookie dough that we're gonna spread out on the sheet pan, and these things will come together pretty quickly, believe it or not, and they're really delicious. So the store-bought cookie dough is really just fine. It makes it really easy, and you don't need to make this a pain in the neck. You're already taking your kids up tubing, and that in and of itself is a pretty major event. So measure out some parchment paper and spread it out on your sheet pan. This will make it a lot easier because these things are going to get pretty gooey once you add all the caramel and stuff. The best way to do this is just to cut it literally the whole length. It's all right if it breaks and falls apart. It's not a big deal. You're gonna smush this into one big giant cookie anyways. Now when you cook this, you're gonna have to cook this for a lot longer than it says to do for the individual cookies simply because you're making one gigantic cookie. Make a big rectangle, just rough. Shape isn't really that important. And you're gonna cut these things into little bars once it's all cooked and covered and ready to go. And you don't want to go all the way to the edge of the pan. This thing's going to double in size. It's really going to spread out a lot, more than you think. So just get it in a rough shape like this. The instructions on this particular cookie dough say to cook it at 350 for about 15 minutes. We're going to cook it at 350, but we're going to do it for about 20 to 25 minutes, depending on how long it takes. It's all squared up on our sheet pan, so we'll just stick it in the oven. So I've got some caramels here. We're gonna unwrap all of them. So we'll unwrap these one at a time, and then we're gonna melt them down for our super sticky bars. So we're gonna do about, I don't know, 2 dozen of these or so. We're gonna scoop them up, drop them in our little saucepan, add just a touch of water, and put them on the heat. So we're just gonna add about a tablespoon of water. Then we'll put them over medium heat and literally just keep an eye on them for about 10 minutes. And they'll be good to go. So it's gonna take a few minutes for these things to melt, and in the meantime, I'm gonna get started on my coconut. Now this is just standard shredded coconut, but we're gonna toast it up and it's gonna give it a ton of flavor. It's gonna make it a little bit crispy. Put about 2 or 3 cups in there. Put it over high heat. We're gonna let that all come together. Our caramel's ready. We're gonna turn that off. And our toasted coconut is ready as well. We're just gonna grab our cookies. They've been cooling for about 15, 20 minutes or so, and obviously cool enough to touch. And then we're gonna finish building these things together. So you can see our caramel is really gooey and ooey, but once we stick it in the fridge, it will firm up a little bit. Just pour it all over the top of this thing. And you can see the size of our cookie, our gigantic sugar cookie here, really grew on us. You don't want to waste any of it. So you want to spread this all the way out to the sides. So now that we've got all our caramel on there, we'll grab our chocolate chips. And put as many or as few on here as you want. I have a feeling my kids are gonna want a lot, so we'll add tons of these things. The trick is to try and get a chocolate chip in every bite. I don't think we're gonna have a problem with that. I think that looks pretty good. What do you think? And our toasted coconut, sprinkle all over the top. Try not to make too much of a mess, but it's all right if you do. Try and get as much coverage as you can on the caramel so that it doesn't get too sticky. I think that looks pretty good. Now we'll stick it in the fridge and let it firm up and harden up before we cut it into bars. We're getting ready for some awesome conditions up on the mountains. About 6 inches of snow last night. Here we go. Getting ready to make our creamy tomato basil bisque. It is a decadent soup, but it really comes together very quickly and easily. I've got 1 yellow onion here. We're just gonna use half of it. We're gonna dice it up pretty finely, and we only really need a half of this thing. So we'll take this. And just really, you want to lose that first layer of the onion anyway. Sometimes it's a little dinged up, marred up from traveling on the back of a truck. Be sure not to chop your fingers. You don't have to be super careful with this dice. We're gonna hit it with a stick blender anyways, so everything's gonna get well chopped. So I'm just gonna grab our pot here. Medium heat or so, about like that. We're gonna grab about a 1/4 stick of butter. Throw that in there, and then we're gonna drop these onions right in there as well. And once these onions have softened up, we're gonna add a knob of garlic or a little clove of garlic in here. Big one. A little bit of salt. Just give that a good stir, and then we'll drop this garlic in here. And if you don't have a garlic press, go get one. They make your life so much easier. Don't waste any of it, of course. Just like that. You can hear that sizzle, and you can smell the garlic literally the second it hits the pan. This is a 28-ounce can of tomato puree. It's really good tomato puree, and I suggest going for the top shelf stuff if you can find it. The better the puree, the better your soup's gonna taste. So we'll drop this in there. Try not to make too much of a mess. Get all that out. Into the recycle with you. We're gonna simmer this thing totally for about 20 minutes once we add the basil. And then we'll add the cream last. So we'll just do a little housekeeping here. And then we'll go straight for the basil. This is, after all, tomato basil soup. I like a lot of basil. I love the smell of it. I love the flavor of it. So as much or little as you like, but we're gonna go heavy on the basil right now. Doesn't matter how it looks right now. Bruise it up, tear it up. Again, we're gonna hit it with the stick blender, so everything's gonna be really well incorporated in this soup. In this bisque, I should say, because we are adding a ton of cream and butter. You just wanna chop it up roughly. Give the stick blender a little bit of a head start. Drop it in one big clump. And then we'll stir it up. Maybe need to turn this down a little bit. You just want it to gently simmer here for about 20 minutes. Now it's time for the cream here. About half this container of heavy cream. It's about a cup, cup and a half, depending on how creamy you want your bisque. So this is back up to a simmer. It's been simmering for about 20 minutes after we added that cold cream, and it's time to hit it with the immersion blender. The immersion blender, if you don't have one, go get one. They're fairly inexpensive and totally worth it. Once we hit this thing in there and get it all blended up, it's gonna make it incredibly smooth, really luxurious on your mouth. I know that sounds totally cheesy, but it's true. Here we go. Hold on to your hat. So this looks pretty good. It's very well blended. We're just gonna take this out. Go ahead, unplug it. Drop it in the sink. We're gonna add the rest of this stick of butter. Not even a little bit, but the whole thing. But we're gonna do it a little bit at a time. Some people call it mounting the butter. I just call it adding the butter. Flavor, deliciousness. And you don't have to be too careful about it. Just grab your spoon, drop it in there, Stir it in. As soon as this one melts, we'll add the next one. As soon as that one melts, we'll add the next one, and so on until this is done. So all of the butter has melted. This thing's looking really good. It's almost ready to go in our thermoses or in a Tupperware. It reheats really well. But of course we have to taste it for salt and pepper. That is delicious. But it definitely needs salt and pepper. Good, maybe half a teaspoon of salt. And about the same amount of pepper here. Give this a stir, get it all incorporated in there, and then we'll be ready to go.
Yay! You're done? Good job, sweetie. Oh, thanks for your help.
Ready?
Bye, Mommy. Bye, Mommy.
I just hold on to her, right?
All you gotta do is hang on to that right there, and you're all good to go.
Here we go! Oh, Jamie, hold on!
Was that fun?
Yeah, it's that fun.
If you've not made homemade potato chips, it's something you should definitely try. It's really easy, especially if you have one of these little like $10 mandolins. Slice up your potatoes really quickly, really thin, thinner than you'll ever get with a knife, and in a tenth of the time. We're gonna soak them for a little bit in our mixing bowl here with just some cold water. It'll release some of the starches. And while we're doing that, we're gonna let our oil preheat back here. So I've already scrubbed and washed a bunch of these potatoes. And we're just gonna take an end off, and I'll show you how quickly we can do this on a mandolin. Get the blade setting to the thinnest one, and then it's literally just like, lost a couple. That's all right though. Be really, really careful with your mandolin. Nobody needs the manicure by mandolin. When it gets down to about that, use this handy little guard. So we're just gonna finish off all of our potatoes, and then we're gonna soak them in some cold water. While they're soaking, we're gonna heat our oil, and then as I'm frying these things, we're going to make our roast beef sandwiches and get them ready to go for our picnic. So go ahead and pour off some of that starch, the first bout of it, and then just let it fill up until it covers all the potatoes, and you can let it sit there while you do other stuff. Just gonna clean up really quick, and then we'll be ready to go. Our potatoes have been soaking for about 20 minutes or so, and our oil is right at about 350. By the time I take these things out and dry them off, we're just gonna pat them dry really quickly. That oil will be up to temperature and we'll be ready to fry. So just take a tea towel, put it in a sheet tray, and take a handful of these things and just lay them out in a single layer. We wanna get them as dry as we can so they get really crispy. When you soak them in cold water, the starches come out of them and it makes for a crispier chip. It's just really gonna make these things turn nice golden brown and super crispy in the fryer. You won't have to do that much work. It is a pretty important step, so don't forget to soak these things. Once you get a layer out like that, you just pat them dry. $350 it is. So our chips are looking good. These will take about 10 or 15 minutes. I'm just gonna make a very quick horsey mayo sauce. About, I don't know, a couple tablespoons of mayo. About the same amount of sour cream. A little tiny dash of Dijon mustard. And a couple tablespoons of horsey sauce. Then we're just gonna really quickly whisk it all together and it'll be good to go. The horsey sauce is really gonna kick up the flavor of the roast beef. It's gonna be awesome. We'll leave that like that. We'll pull these chips. Drain the oil off as best you can. Put them on this rack right here. Spread them out a little bit. So our potatoes are done. I'm just gonna hit them with a little bit of my favorite seasoned salt. You can do really whatever you want. Hit them with some seasoned salt, regular salt and pepper. You can add some herbs to these. Some people like dill. But for today, we're just gonna do a little seasoned salt. Now it's time to make some sandwiches. So I've just got a pack of regular store-bought onion rolls. And we're gonna hit both sides of this bread with this horsey sauce mayo. It's gonna kind of insulate the bread from a lot of the moisture. I know that it's counterintuitive. You think that this is moistening the bread, but it keeps a lot of the moisture from the meat and the arugula and stuff like that from getting in and making your sandwich really soggy. This horsey sauce mayo is not spicy enough that the kids aren't gonna eat it. There's a lot of other stuff that's gonna help make this sandwich palatable for them. Got all my ingredients for our roast beef sandwiches. So this is how I like to build these sandwiches. Pickles first, pickles on the bottom. So these pickles I made just by slicing up really thin some cucumbers, some carrots, with a little bit of dill, putting them in a jar, and then adding a pickling liquid. And the pickling liquid is just made with vinegar, water, salt, a little bit of sugar, and some peppercorns. Bring it to a boil, add it to your pickles, and pretty soon you've got really quick, easy pickles. So then we'll start adding our roast beef, big hearty sandwiches for skiers and inner tubers. So after the pickling liquid's poured on top of all the pickles, I just stick it in the fridge. It's best if you leave it for about 24 hours. You can eat them even a few hours afterwards, but really they don't come to their own until after about 24 hours in the fridge. Then I'm gonna do a slice of cheese. Small handful of arugula. And there you have it. Roast beef sandwich made for a king. Just like that. That's what you're looking for. I'm gonna get to making the rest of these sandwiches. I'm gonna wrap them with a little bit of plastic wrap and we're gonna head to the hills. That was awesome.
It's so fun.
You getting hungry, buddy?
Yeah, it's great. I'm hungry.
Let's go get some chow.
Ooh, yummy soup.
Tomato basil.
Does it smell good?
Delicious.
Homemade potato chips. Russet potatoes, fried. Fried.
They're nice and crunchy. Really good. I ate half of them.
Oh my goodness, you got stuff on your hand.
And this sandwich is delicious. Perfect after-ski meal.
Can I have cocoa? I have a cocoa. Oh, you have cocoa? How was skiing? Oh, we did before.
Skiing was awesome. Tell me about tubing. Did you guys go super fast?
Really super. super duper, super duper, super duper fast.
Super duper duper pooper super duper fast?
Yeah, they rocket.
That's like a rocket? That's awesome.
Caramel and chocolate.
It looks good.
Taylor, you won't like those cookies. I'm telling you, you don't want one.
Actually, I do want one.
No, you don't.
Do you like your cookie?
Easy. It's too sticky.
It's too sticky. Oh no. Oh no. Is that a good way to end your meal, your picnic?
Yeah.
Tubing L2, Colton Dabney 0. Fatherknowsfood heading home. Today's episode of Fatherknowsfood is brought to you in part by Signature City Properties. With over 35 years of experience, Signature City Properties LLC has helped buyers, sellers, and investors achieve their real estate goals. More information is available by calling 720-480-8686. And by JSR Incorporated, a full-service television production company bringing modern life into full focus. 303-596-2207. And by viewers like you, thank you. Today's recipes and much more can be found at www.fatherknowsfood.com.